Of course, the anniversary for 9/11 tomorrow. The terrorist attacks, Zach, as we all remember, killed nearly 3,000 people and really rattled the nation. And as the country pauses to remember that day, today we are looking back on the impact that day had on Wall Street. And we've got the perfect guest to kick off that coverage for us today. Peter Tuckman is a trader at the New York Stock Exchange, a friend of the show, we should say. Peter, a lot of people on Wall Street today sort of remembering that feeling of anxiety, the tension that was in lower Manhattan. You were on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange that day. We saw trading suspended immediately after that second plane crashed into the South Tower. What are you thinking about today as you look back over the last 20 years?
The most significant thing, I think, today is really very special. We were able to invite the families of the two brokers who actually lost their lives that day. They came down, the sons, the mother of Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Sutcliffe. They had been having breakfast at the Windows on the World that day. It's a powerful day. The anniversary is significant in so many ways, especially after the last year and a half that we've experienced through COVID and the fragility and anxiety that everybody feels in the world today. But that day was significant in so many ways. It started out as a regular day. I came to work, and as I got out of the subway at around 8:52, the first building had been hit, and as I walked from the subway to the exchange, there was ash coming down from the sky. There was some debris on the statue of George Washington, and we got sort of rushed into a lockdown here on the floor. And as the story unfolded, it was, I always talk about the resilience of the human spirit in this community here on the floor of the exchange. And, we all sort of hunkered down together. We started calling our family members. For me at that time, I worked for a company called Robert Corley. One of our clerks had a father, Chicky Pabon was his name. He worked at Kenner Fitzgerald. And Angel, who is his son, who is our clerk, was on the phone with his dad as the second building hit, and his father said, "We're being evacuated to the roof of the Trade Center, and we are going to be evacuated by helicopter." And unfortunately, the phone went dead at that point, and Chicky lost his life on that day. And so, the day unfolded. We were evacuated around 11:47 that morning by New York City police, and it's a day I'll always remember. It's a memory that's quite devastating, and I think it changed the world and changed the floor of the stock exchange. But we're strong. We're a family here, and we will always be resilient and come back.
Yeah, it changed a lot of lives, and obviously a lot of the kind of precautions that have come out of that attack really has changed, I guess, kind of the atmosphere down at the New York Stock Exchange too. And looking back, I mean, how different is it now relative to kind of, I guess, the days back then? It's kind of hard to get down to the New York Stock Exchange now.
It's incredible. You reflect on the magnitude of the day. And it really, literally, you guys are New Yorkers. You come down here. It took easily 10 years before, you even had a semblance of any normalcy in Lower Financial District, guys. There were those small streets from Chambers Street down to Wall Street that, still reflected the devastation of that day for literally a decade. Obviously, we're 20 years out. They've rebuilt the area. There are 65,000 more people living in the district here. As far as the security on the exchange goes, it will never be the same as it was. This has always been a high security place just by its nature as the financial district and the hub of the world's investment community. But we've got streets that are blocked off by these steel girders that would block a car bomb or a truck bomb that would come down here. There are areas, in a circumference of probably 5 or 10 blocks that are blocked and manned by police. We have police barricades out front. We have security. It takes 3 or 4 security checks to get down to the floor of the exchange. So those are the things that they've implemented. We do have a lockdown policy in case this were to ever happen again. So, the security, as being probably one of the second to the White House, I believe, as the highest bomb threat place there is in the world, we've done everything we can do to protect this area. They tried to take down the financial hub of the world, and they did not succeed. We came back strong a week later on Monday, a week after the attack. We were all here ringing the opening bell. Everybody rushed back to work, and we were here. We've been here ever since. I think there was a lot of risk coming back down here. A lot of people have lost their lives in disease and cancers that came due to the significant trauma that the area experienced. We've had a loss of 50 plus lives of brokers who came back to work post 9/11. But you know, we do come back, we are here. I think people came back a lot stronger than they have since COVID. I think we're seeing a trickle-back effect of people trying to get back to work since March 2020. Back then, people roared back to work.
And Peter, I want to point out to our viewers who are watching, we've got a live image here of that memorial in Lower Manhattan, of course, dedicated to the victims of 9/11. I think you bring up a good point here. It's important to remember that it wasn't just about the lives lost on the day of the attacks, but the fallout that continued there. But you talked about the resilience that you saw on Wall Street, the big comeback that we remember on September 17th. Talk me through that day, because that was really sort of reflected of the moment that, if you will, after days of sort of feeling anxious and isolated in many ways, this is kind of when the community rallied on that day when trade reopened.
You know, I always reflect on it. You know, throughout history, we've had incredible crises and experiences and attacks and whatnot. And I always talk about the floor of the stock exchange having a resilient spirit and the human element, which is so powerful down here. And I think it could not have been reflected more wonderfully by that day on Monday when we all came back. The exchange had never been closed, I don't believe. Perhaps, maybe in 29 or maybe in World War II, but not in my experience, that we had been closed for a week. We all came back. I remember coming down to work. There was no subway service on that Monday. We had to walk from 14th Street. But the people who rallied, the first responders who were up on the podium, I believe Rudy Giuliani was there, and Richie Grasso was there, and Hillary Clinton was there, and Chuck Schumer were there, and all the brokers were here. The room was full with thousands of people, and we opened the market. The market obviously reflected the downward anxiety in the investment community globally and whatnot by the way it traded, but that didn't really matter. That, it was NYSE strong, New York City strong, and we roared back, and it showed the ultimate resilience of the human spirit, that nothing was going to defy us, nothing was going to take us down, and that we were going to survive.
Well, Peter, it is great to get your perspective on this day, 20 years later, somebody who experienced it firsthand. Peter Tuckman, trader at the New York Stock Exchange. Always good to have you on the show. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much, guys.